have you ever seen these dynamic pricing sliders on websites? Well, this one can actually be created in Framer without any coding. In this video, I'll walk you through step by step on how this can be added to your pricing pages inside the Framer. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So the other day I was browsing the internet and I saw Lindy.ai/pricing and I was like, this is super cool. I love how they have these different stops on this pricing slider, and it just shows this, dynamic prices for each of the stops. And I was like, we should be able to do something like this in Framer. And I created a component that can be used to create basically the same thing as you can see, but even I think a little bit better because the numbers have an option to animate even in a different way. This is just one of the animation options. But yeah, basically I'm going to show you how to use that component. It's going to be pretty simple, so probably a really short video, but yeah, I'm going to walk you through step by step. So let's see it. So as you can see in Framer, I already have a project where I have a pricing card set up right here. If you go down to the description, by the way, and click the remix link, you can get the same exact project onto your account and start doing everything with me. You'll find a starter page on the left pages panel, and you'll see exactly what I'm seeing right here with this little pricing card that is waiting for us to add some additional elements. But yeah, feel free to remix it and start building with me. So basically, when we want to create a pricing slider like this, we have to use the pricing slider component from framer.university. So once you got that, it's going to also linked in the description, but you can also just type in framer.university/resources and yeah, just search for pricing slider. Once you have that, copy it and paste it into Framer, and basically you're going to see this. A pricing slider has appeared on your canvas. Well, this is the base of our component. You can see that on the right properties panel, we have a bunch of different customization options. First of all, the most important thing is that we have 3 modes. It's either slider, label, or a button. But again, we're going to start with the slider. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just press Command X here, and I'll make sure that it's positioned within my pricing card. So I'm going to just press Command V here. I'm going to also launch my Keystroke Pro, so you're going to see the shortcuts that I'm pressing. So once we have this in here, we can set its width to fill, so it fills up the available space here. And with the arrow keys, I'm just going to move it up right here. So now we have the pricing slider here, and we can move onto the right panel to start customizing it. So with the stops, I can define how many stops I'm going to have on my pricing. Do you have 3 tiers, 5, 4, or how many usage options you have? In this case, we might have 5. The default is basically which one is the one that you see when you land on the website. We're going to have it on 1. And here, the rest is just for customizing how the visuals look. So the line, color, and everything. So I'm going to just probably speed up this part of the video where I'm tweaking these different settings. And yeah, basically that's it. Now you can see that if we preview it, we have this nice slider, but we can drag it, but nothing really happens at this point. By the way, on the right panel, you can also remove the dots if you don't need those. And then you just have this little slider, but keep the dots right here. So once we have this, all we have to do is to duplicate this same component that we have right here. So Command D, and then move it within the frame where we actually want to display the price. So I cannot really drag it inside of the frame. So what I'm going to do is again Command X to cut it and then paste it within the frame where I want it to be. So it's going to be within the label. I'm going to move it to the left. So then I can change the slider mode to label, and then I'm going to also make sure the width is set to fit content so it doesn't fill up the available space here, pushing this other text layer away. So fit content will be applied right here. Okay, it looks really nice. And then here on the right panel, I can start customizing the label mode of the pricing slider. So the default again is going to be 1. It's the same that we have on the slider. And then here in the text, you can see that this is an array where we have different values. Now we have to remember that we set 5 stops here. So that basically means that we will have to define 5 items right here, which will be displayed for each of the stops. So for the first stop, we're going to display 10, and for the last stop, we're going to display 50. And so in this case, I might want to have 24, 59, 89, 129, and then 249. And then I can also remove the suffix from it because we don't need the per month, but we're going to keep the prefix, which is going to be a little $sign. Then I'm going to also quickly change the font settings. It's going to be a little bit bigger, so maybe 36. I'm going to also start decreasing the line height here because you can see that the bottom parts of these text should be aligned. So maybe like this. And then the weight will be also increased, maybe semi-bold looks great, or even medium. And then also we have some additional customization options such as decoration and text balance, user select, but use these if you need them, but in this case, we don't really need those. So now we can already start testing the component. In theory, these two components should be communicating with each other, and the label should be changing when I'm changing the slider. And as you can see, that is exactly what is happening right here. But you can see that the animation is not really there. It's just an instant, switch to a different text, a value that we actually defined here. Well, if we want to add an animation, we can just click here. We can either add flow or counter. Flow looks like this. It is pretty cool. And then the counter looks something like this. Again, really, really nice. And I think now we already know what we will have to do. We'll just have to create more of these components, more and more instances with either label or button modes. Actually, we are going to only have one button, but we can have more labels because as you can see on here, we also changed the number of credits here and here when we jump to different stops in the slider. So let's do that as well. I'm going to just copy this component here and paste it within this credits stack. I'm going to make sure that it's a little bit smaller. So I'm going to change it to 14, 1.4 line height, and we're going to keep it on semi-bold. And so as you can see, we're going to have different credits, so a couple of thousands for each. So again, here in the text, I'm just defining these different values. 1000, I can also put a little comma here, 1000, maybe 2000, 4000, 7, and let's say 10. And then of course, we're not going to need the prefix here. However, we're going to need a suffix that says credits. So credits is written for the suffix, and we can also just put a space at the start of the suffix to make sure that we have a gap between the value and the suffix. So as you can see now, all of these components are communicating with each other really nicely. And when I change the slider, the label on the top that shows the price and the credit count is also changing. And so now we only have to add the tasks up to. So we basically copy this pricing because we're gonna have the same values that we defined here. So I'm gonna just copy it, paste it in here, and then I'm gonna just change the color slightly to this color to match the rest of the text layers. Then I'm gonna also match their size, line height, and weight. And then, yeah, we're just gonna have to add prefix and suffix. So tasks up to is going to be the prefix, and then the per month will be the suffix. So now as you can see, we have this little line of text right here, and that is also perfectly changing for each of these different stops. So now we have to think about which pricing slider component should we duplicate. You can see that on this button, we're gonna have the values for the price. So probably it's a smart idea to duplicate the pricing slider because we have already set different prices for each of the stops here in this array. So I'm going to copy this and paste it within here. Now we can just switch it to button mode And yeah, we can customize it so it looks a little bit more like a button. So first of all, we're going to change the width to fill. So we can change the font to 16 pixels, 1.4 for the line height, and then it's going to be medium. Then we're going to change the prefix to get started, and then the suffix will be per month. So it says get started, and in brackets it says the current price of the tier. Then we can also change the fill color here to something different, a little bit darker of a blue color. And then now, since we duplicated this pricing here, the prices here in the array are the same. So if I start adjusting the slider again, you can see how the price changes on the button as well, really nicely. And what I can also do with this component is I can add a little hover state to it here on the last property. I can change the fill color maybe to a different color when I hover over this, maybe a little bit darker blue. And now you can see that it has the hover state. And what I can also do is I can add different links for these different stops. So I can also just add a single link, so maybe https framer.university. So when I click this, it will take me to framer.university. But what I can also do is I can specify that when we are at the second stop, it takes me to a different link. So maybe if you want to have different like links for different stops, because for example, this is 59, this is 24, you might be directing them to different checkout pages. You can do that really easily. So maybe on the second stop, we add another value, which takes to framer.university/resources. And now if I'm on the first stop, I go to framer.university. If I'm on the second stop, I go to framer.university/resources. Another last thing that we have to cover is what if we want to have, different tiers, like different pricing cards that have separate sliders and like separate set of components that communicate with each other. How can we do that? Because if we just duplicate this, what we're gonna see is that it just, yeah, when I drag this, it first of all didn't work, and when I drag this, it just changes the numbers here on the right as well. So how can we do these different groups? Well, what we have to make sure is that the pricing slider component instances that should be in the same group and should be communicating with each other should have the same name. So for example, in this case, on the left for the Pro, each of them were called pricing. Now on this other one, we need to rename all of these. So the label here on the top, the slider, this label here, this label here, and this button mode here as well, to a different name, maybe to Pro. So now these are named Pro and these are named pricing. So now each of these component instances will know in which group they are and with which components they should be communicating with. So if I take a look at this, as you can see, I can change the left and the right set of components without them getting confused with each other. So that's it for this video. Again, make sure to go to framer.university. It's gonna be right here, pricing slider component for Framer. You can copy the component here. You can also remove the project if you want to. And yeah, make sure to leave your questions in the comments if you have any about this component. I really do hope that this component will be useful for you and that this video was also helpful. And yeah, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.